Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Aaron Mayong Atlaw, and welcome to
AFAM to
From
Fluent.
to Fluent. Yes, the podcast where we learn Bisaya one simple step at a time. My name is Aaron. I'm your student host on this journey, and with me is my teacher Ronald Kilaton, and together we'll do our absolute best to help you speak, understand, and enjoy the Cebuano language. And in the first episode, we'll really talk about what does it mean to know a language, and of course, we introduce or the great Ronald Kilaton, who has helped me study and learn or be able to even converse with locals. So I want to start with you, Ronald Kilaton, then talk about a bit more about your philosophy, and the four levels of knowing a language, and why Bisaya isn't always translated English. And then we'll leave the listeners with a big tip, leaving them excited for the next episode. But for me personally, Ronald, starting with you, when I arrived to Cebu, I had no idea how to learn the language, and I would pick up books from the bookstore, and when I would try to speak the words after, I would often sound like an ancient old man, and people would laugh at me. But luckily, with your help, I think you've helped over hundreds of students. I've been able to become almost fluent in Bisaya, and yeah, very excited to hop on this journey with you again and introduce you to the listener. So, who are you? Who is this great person who wrote this awesome book on Cebuano? And tell me more. Also, well, tell us more about your philosophy as well.
Well, thank you for the very generous introduction. I am Ronald, and I had been teaching Cebuano for the past 6 years. I started before pandemic, I think. But anyway, I wrote a book because I initially just wanted to help my wife try to learn the language. But when we like you, Iran, we tried to pick up books from the bookstore, and then it just didn't work because many of the books were just too deep, or some of the books were just too shallow. Just learning vocabulary or learning phrases just to get by. So I wanted her to learn the basics of sentence structures and how to use words in relation with other words. So essentially, I uh, back in 2018, I wrote a book primarily for her, but then it just blossomed into this, teaching other people how to learn the language as well. If you want to go to Amazon, I have listed my book there, which is Learning Cebuano with Ronald. The name,
Awesome.
the front of the book is Magtuunta. Well, you can explore that. I will also give you a link of somewhere in the
Yeah,
video of where to find it.
we'll try to. We'll add it in the link in the podcast so people can find and download your book. But
Yes.
I didn't know it started like that, and I think it has helped lots of students to learn Cebuano like that. So that's very, very nice, and I think also unique to the book. And then we'll be covering that aspects of the book as well today. Is of course your philosophy,
Yes.
as you like to say, the four levels of knowing a language. So could you please share that with the listeners what that exactly is, and explain that, and I will also apply the structure throughout the entire podcast, so people will actually become fluent at the end of listening to our podcast.
Yes. So I like to make the analogy of learning a language into like building a house. So if you're building a house, you have to understand what the bricks are for, what the beams are for, what the windows are for, and all these different things. So in learning a language, we have to start with the very basics. So I think level one is like learning vocabulary, for instance. So we would learn words, pangalan, bata, adlaw, basic words that will mean something. And then in level 2, we're going to learn about grammar, stringing those words that you've learned in level 1 together to form a simple sentence, basic sentence. So for instance, uh, the weather is nice, or I like to go to the mall, or something like that. And then when we finish level 2, there seems to be like a level above it. When you go up a level, it gets a little bit more complicated. But when we get to level 3, it gets really complicated because that's when we start forming complex sentences together. So in English, in the English grammar, for instance, when we say, "I would like to go outside if the weather is nice. I would like to go for a run if it is not raining." So there will be subordinate clauses, and then the main clause and all those different things. But that's in level 3. And then when we get to level 4, I typically call it the boss level because it's like the hardest level.
Yeah.
This is the level when you become really fluent. It is when you're communicating with the locals uh, without any difficulties. I
Yeah.
typically can determine if the person is in level 4, for me at least when I was learning a different language. I can know that I'm in level four when I start to understand the jokes of that culture. So, for instance, when I went to the U.S., uh, in my first year, I didn't know uh, how jokes go. How when people tell jokes and then people would laugh. I mean, I couldn't laugh with them, but once I started getting to know the culture and all that stuff, I'm able to join in, all because I understand the language better and I become fluent. So that's my sort of philosophy in learning the language at different levels of where you will be when you start learning the language. Iran,
Yeah.
where do you think you are in these different levels?
Yeah, I think at this stage I would say I'm between level 2 and 3. So
Okay.
I think of course vocab is it takes a lot of work, a lot of
Yes.
repetition, but right now so you just have to know the words and it helps to know the words. So sometimes when somebody asks me a question, often when I just simply say "oh" or "salamat kaayo," some
Hmm.
people are already impressed and they start speaking to me in full Bisaya. But and then of course I don't know what they're saying, but even just knowing one or two words helps me determine the meaning of it through context. So
That's true.
and then so I'm now learning conjugations and trying to string words together.
Mm.
So I think I'm between level 2 and 3, and I hope at the end of all our episodes we'll go to boss level, and maybe we can work on that throughout the entire podcast, which is also I think interesting for the listeners to understand as well as we go together on this learning journey to learn the to become all bosses in Cebuano.
Yes. Learning the language is difficult, especially when you are advanced in years. But with much practice, I mean, even if you start with level one, even if you just do 15 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day, just learning vocabulary and how to string simple, very simple sentences together, in no time you're gonna get to level four. I assure you that. So don't lose heart. Don't think that this is too overwhelming. Start little by little,
Yeah,
and we are here to help you.
yeah, and perfect. And I'm very excited to keep going. I think one of the biggest challenges, or the most interesting, my challenge right now is, of course, when I'm staying in between level 2 and 3, I often struggle with the word order of things. So I think in
Mm,
English we're very used with subject, verb, and object,
yes.
whereas at Bisaya it's verb, subject, object. And often I just directly translate from from Bisaya to English, or from English to Bisaya.
Mm,
But yeah, that's now maybe touching level 2 already. But I think it's also even possible for us to just have communicate meaning with just nouns, right? So I
yes.
think yeah,
Yes.
with your philosophy, you're also saying that from level 1 already we can start communicating.
Mm. So in our journey, we're gonna touch on those different topics. We're gonna start how nouns work, kind of like in building a house, we have to understand how the bricks work and how the beams work. So we're gonna try to understand what the nouns are, and then the adjectives, and then the verbs, and how to string sentences together, meaning the sentence structures. We're gonna get to them, all of them. We're gonna talk about them in our journey to learning the language. Yes.
Awesome. I'm excited. Do we have some examples
Yes. So
that we
for
can share with the listeners? Yeah.
Right. So, basic sentence structure. In English, we typically start with the subject and then the verb and the object. So, for instance, a simple sentence like "The child threw the ball." In Cebuano, we typically start with the verb first. Most of the time, we would start with the verb first. So, we would say that the throwing part will be labay, the child will be bata, and then ball will be bola. So when we say it in Cebuano, the order kind of changes. So we would say uh, throw the child the ball instead of the child threw the ball. Does that make sense? So in
Uh,
Cebuano, it will
love.
be naglabay ang bata og bola.
No. Yeah. Ang and sa, ang and uk. We don't
Yes.
know those words yet, but we'll get there. But I would then say labay pata bola. I think they would also understand.
Yes, yes, that's true. So we're gonna talk. That's right. You mentioned the ang, the og, and the sa. We're gonna talk about them too because they're very important. Yes. So
Awesome. So that's so very excited to hop on this journey then together with the listeners, so they also know a bit more about our philosophy.
mhm.
You wanted to leave the listeners with a tip that they could
Yes,
simmer on moving forward.
yes. In trying to learn the language, the biggest tip that I can give you is context. Context will always define the meaning. So even if you already know the vocabulary definition of the word, if you put that word in a different context, it's going to mean something else. And this is typically this happens very often in jokes, right? So for instance, if people are talking about food, and then the comedian would talk about it in a very different kind of in a different tone, then certain images come to mind, and then the words, even though they relate to food, they now mean something else. Well, some of you may catch on to what I'm trying to say, but anyway, context defines the meaning. So even if we know the vocabulary word, please don't forget about the context, and we're going to talk about that also in our journey. How important that is. All right.
Like, grabe, makamatay ka.
Yes, yes. So for instance, if I was in a dangerous situation, and I'm going to say that, I'm hoping that you would call the police because someone is trying to kill me. But if I had said that in a comedy club, then I mean something else. I'm saying that the jokes are really hitting, and the comedian is killing me because I'm laughing so hard. Stuff like that.
Okay. Well, we'll take the note of that. That context definitely matters, and yeah, well, I think we'll throughout the podcast we'll show the importance of that as well. Personally, it has helped me to always try to deduce what people are saying based on context, and often you can derive the meaning.
Yes.
So now the listeners know that the four levels will be working through, and also why Bisaya is a lot more than just translated English. So for the next episode, I think we'll start already with level one with the basic nouns like balay, bata,
Yes.
and tubig, and even how to say the or a in Cebuano using the word ang. And
Mm-mm.
ang seems to be a very much a pain in the ass for me so far. So hopefully we can tackle that in the next episode.
Yes. Yes.
So thank the listeners then. Or would you like to add something more, Ronald, before we cancel or end the podcast?
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for episode 2, and I can wait to see you guys again in level 2 and learning about nouns.
Yes, and if you want to learn more, subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if you're ready, speak Bisaya, padayunta. Let's keep going. Amping.
Bye bye.